Hello, hello.
Hey,
Good afternoon. How you doing, Michael?
I'm fine. What about you, man?
Fantastic. Thank you very much. So, thank you one and all for joining us. We're going to be talking about brand protection, and in this case, brand protection in the context of we're going to be talking about brand protection in the context of fundraising. So, first and foremost, thank you, Michael, for joining us. We're going to go through a very quick introduction of Giftable, your past experience, how you've gone through the brand protection process already, and why this is important to you currently today. Before we get to that, would you like to tell us a bit more about Giftable?
Sure, absolutely. So, Giftable is a mobile application that allows you to send gifts to your close network, so basically your phone contacts. It's a really easy process. You basically select who you want to gift something to, you choose something from the catalog, you put it on your credit card, you're sending this over, and the recipient can then go to one of the partner's retail locations and basically redeem the gift. The company was founded in 2019, so basically now we're in 2021, so 2 years into this. However, brand protection, for that matter, didn't take us until 2021 to get done.
Absolutely. So, before we come to how you protected the brand or had it protected for this company, do you want to tell us? Do you want to tell us about your previous experience with brand protection?
Absolutely. So back in the day, I was running another company basically from 2012 to 2017 before exiting the company. And so at the time, I was still younger than I am still today, basically, and no idea what we were getting ourselves into at the time. And I was lucky and really in a good position to have investors that were not only believing in us, but also helping us out in terms of, well, pretty much everything, right?
Mm.
So we had this one really sophisticated and known and professional investor from Luxembourg, who obviously had his own team already behind his companies, and one of those guys was a legal guy. So basically, what we said, hey, okay, so this is the name of the company. Can you trademark it? And he basically did everything. However,
Mm.
and that is where it becomes different to be working with you guys now is, well, this whole process was rather transparent. So I didn't know what was happening. We were just suggested, okay, so these are the classes you need to be signing up for. These are the documents you need to be signing. And by the way, this is the invoice you need to be paying at the end of the day. And so while we just run with it, given that there was a great introduction by our sophisticated investor at the time, and that was
Mm.
completely fine. I mean, it was just another process and a completely different one than the experience that I was having with you guys.
Mm. Yeah, we do actually have that conversation quite a bit. Transparency is something that we're really happy about in terms of, and this is what we really try and do with our clients at GreatBrands. Now, it's quite interesting to understand the thought process that goes behind, brand protection in general, because when we have the conversation, we understand intrinsically how important that is. But then when we're on the client side, what we try and do is really understand what the client's business is all about. So in your previous company and this one in particular, so you've spoken about what it is to work with GreatBrands. On the other hand, do you want to tell us a bit more about the challenges that you faced at the very early stage, and mainly about Giftable as a word? And yeah, understanding how that came to being.
Absolutely. So at the very, very, very beginning of this venture, Giftable wasn't called Giftable. Giftable was actually called Treat. And I was actually, before getting to know you and in particular Mark as well and the whole team, I was already talking to a different lawyer, basically asking him, so look, there's this brand called Treat that is signed up for in the US, but they have an international brand. They are not in the same domain, in the same industry that I am in. Would there be a clash at some point? Can we sign up for different classes than they do, and then we can still use their name, etc., etc.? And
Mm.
as you may well remember, then we met at the offices here at Silver Square before, when you guys were still incorporated here as well. And basically, so this whole discussion came up again, and this new name came up as well, which is Giftable. And Giftable in itself is sort of self-explanatory, as one would say, already explaining what the concept is, where we are going, at least what industry we're in, etc. And so this could have become a hassle, but thanks to you and your team, we were actually able to navigate through all of that. Where it becomes even more interesting is that today, like after a couple of months that we've been working together, I actually understand what the classes really are and why the classes are so important, and to what extent you need to worry about those classes, and that you really need to have them. And not only go with like the bare minimum, but even go into different classes because you see an evolution of your product or what the company is going to be doing over the next 2 to 5 years. So that has been really, really helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's, it's really interesting that you point that out, because it's one of the ways that we work a lot with our clients, is that what we're trying to do as much as possible, and that's the point of having these conversations as well with an audience, is that essentially when we're talking about brand protection, it's not about keeping, you know, all that knowledge for us. What we want is really to put that across, and having your first-hand experience with what it's like to go through that process with GreatBrands is quite interesting. Now, you touch upon the classes, and the classes are super important, and I really want to illustrate that for the audience. Essentially, what you just said was understanding what the classes are and why we select the classes that we do. Is when we get to understand your business, what we're doing is essentially digging deep into what's happening in the here and the now, but also what's going to happen over time.
And that's exactly what excuse me to interrupt real quick on that. That's exactly it. So basically, even on the brand protection side, you are already, and this comes back to the fundraising. I mean, you know how those discussions are going, right? But it already shows to an investor as well, okay, so these guys know exactly where they want to go. The roadmap becomes clearer and clearer. So the clarity level is not only on the, okay, so this is my Excel sheet, and this is my pitch deck, and this is my everything else that goes into a data room for investors, right? But it also goes clear on, okay, we have this vision, this is where we want to go, and this is exactly what this company is going to be like. So when we are talking about mission and vision statements, now all of a sudden you have clear ground as to this startup really wants to get there. It's not just talk.
Absolutely. And in fact, the fact that you're mentioning the mission and the vision, you're talking about the short, medium, and long term. Now, as soon as you are having those conversations with investors, in conversations that you and I have had, you mentioned how reassured they were to understand that this brand was already protected, because that's something that very few people know, is that if you work on a brand, you can work on a brand for 20 years, but if you haven't protected it, you don't own it. And that is something that, you know, we try to hammer across again and again and again, to try and get people to understand how important that is. Whether you work with us or not, it's, you know, protect your brand, because if you don't protect it, if you don't own it, you can do whatever you want, but somebody can take it away from you.
Absolutely. And I personally I think, and I really believe in this, is that ultimately you are already one step ahead, right? You are mitigating risk for an investor. It's not like somebody can just come along and snatch away whatever you've already been building on. So to me, this is like one of the most essential things today, is really showing that we know what we are doing, for one, obviously, but then on the other hand side, we also know where we need to go in order to like mitigate the risk as much as possible for investors, that they can trust us, that they can trust the brand. If we wouldn't have a trademark registration or anything, then, well, what brand would we actually be mitigating the risk on, right? It's not something that's registered. It's not something that they can make use of, that is going to in the future, on the reevaluation of the company or whatever, is going to have meaning. Because well, just putting on a name, that's easy, but protecting it and going through this whole process is, well, for a couple of brands, a longer process, as in our case it was, and for others it's going to be really quick. Still, it takes some time, it takes effort, it needs to be done, and it's something that that just goes to show to investors as well, that you guys know what you're doing.
And we very much appreciate that comment. In terms of, I mean, you mentioned the length that it took to protect your particular brand. You mentioned earlier on, and just to explain a bit to the audience itself, what happened was your brand was actually, your trademark was originally contested because it was put across as descriptive. But essentially, when we came along and we helped you through that process, essentially what we did is that we illustrated with the classes and demonstrated through A plus B that Giftable as such was not descriptive because the classes had been chosen in such a way, and the defense, the wording that was put behind the class actually managed to get that through. So yeah, your process did take quite a while. However, as soon as we make the trademark application process, as such, the brand is already protected because there is that first proof of registration, which is really super, super important, which meant that you were able to go out and do marketing for your brand and already gain that initial traction that you needed. And obviously, being in a fundraising round at the moment, your investors have that peace of mind of being able to say, okay, well, what we're investing in today is in fact going to be protected in the short, medium, and long term. So speaking of the short, medium, and long term, do you want to tell us a bit more about the company and where you see that going? Because obviously that's something that everybody's going to be interested in.
Absolutely. So where it becomes interesting, and that comes also back to the brand protection again. I mean, Giftable was registered as an international brand protection, so for the European Union in general. And that as well goes to show that we are not interested in only taking the Luxembourgish market and then potentially going into the Benelux region as well. It's the classic way of a startup here in Luxembourg, as you are aware of. But we really want to grow this company into the capitals of the European Union. And when I'm talking about capitals, and for that matter, the inherent countries as well, it's also going to be Berlin, and it's also going to be Paris, and it's also going to be Vienna, and it's also going to be Zurich. And if we're talking about these countries, and let's face it, if we're talking in particular for Berlin, you know, there were a couple of brothers at some point that were just copycatting everything that they could and then make a hell lot of money on that. So being protected in that sense, for the name at least, I mean, the concept itself and what we're doing, it's quite easy. There's no patentable, trademarkable tag behind it right now. But where we see this company going, it's going to be way bigger than just sending gifts. So basically, all of that already has a declination in what we are doing today and what we were doing about a year ago when we were talking to you guys and signing up for that trademark. Also, I wanted to add that basically the trademark registration with you guys, it took us so long, not because of you and not because of me, but also because we are talking to a European institution, and those guys give themselves obviously plenty of time to reply to something, and let's say they max it out quite a bit. So if they are doing so, it doesn't mean that we were obviously getting nervous at some point, saying, "Okay, so guys, come on, give me something to be working on."
Is it gonna happen?
Is it gonna happen though? And ultimately, well, it happened, and that was obviously a great pleasure as well to see that happen and then have the trademark registration, then finding it back in my emails and saying, "Okay, thanks, Mark, thanks, Phil." That was a great collaboration.
Yeah, absolutely. And in fact, you touch upon the timeline that it takes. So when we submit the first part, when we submit the application itself, there's a 2-week preparation period and verification period. And then there's 3 months of opposition period. And that 3 months is absolutely incompressible anyway. So as soon as somebody does, whether it's internal or external, make a form of opposition, then that automatically adds 2 months. And because there were a couple of back and forth, then naturally that led to, I think the entire process took something like 9 months, didn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
But I think that that's probably one of the longest periods that we've ever seen throughout the history of GreatBrands.
But that's funny, right? Because that's what we're growing on. So basically, it has been probably for you then a first-time experience on that level as well. But we just kept pushing, and basically today we have the brand. So that was the most important part, right? The results is what counts.
Absolutely, absolutely, and being able to have that, that two-way communication. So between you, us, them, and ultimately you knowing exactly where the brand is and being able to put that across to the investors. So essentially, and this is, we've spoken about the past, and now moving forwards in terms of your evolution, because naturally as a serial entrepreneur, you're going to end up building more companies. You're going to be launching new ventures in the short, medium, and long term. So for the audience, what kind of message would you like to put across, and your experience now with brand protection, and what do you think that they should know?
What I believe that they should know is that the importance of this is often just put aside, and that basically, yeah, okay, so brand protection, it's important, but let's see if we can get this project off the ground. And I personally believe that that's already, well, too late. Basically, if you are getting off the ground and if you are getting your first traction, and I can assure you that somebody is looking at you, and they most likely are going to be looking if you already signed up for the brand or for the trademark. And basically, if you haven't done it, they could just go ahead and do it. I mean, I know that we've talked about this, and you can still do some opposition as well if you wanted to sign it up, and you can prove that you already have something going on that brand, etc., etc. But I don't want to know how long it would take in that case, and how much money it would cost to go after someone like that. Just, well, you could basically just lose the name. You could lose probably even the money you invested into a domain. I mean, we haven't even spoken on that, but basically I bought the giftable.com domain at a premium price. As you know, it was something that has been used before. The domain exists for like over 20 years now, I think. So basically that would have money that would have been money lost down the drain, just because I didn't think about something as easy to do if you have the right people that you can be working with on that.
Yeah. I mean, that's a conversation that you and I had in the very early days, of what it was going to take to actually get this, the brand out there. Now, when you're doing marketing with the brand that you have, I mean, Giftable. Once you say it and you understand the context and the concept, it's very, very self-explanatory, which is I believe that you've got an extremely strong brand. Now, moving forwards, this, I'm looking further into the future, let's say 5, 7, 10 years down the line, when you want to go and sell the company. And of course, who knows, you're going to have a buyout, you're going through a round of investment now, you want to grow the company as big as possible, which is one of the ambitions. But behind that, there's you've actually got a group, and there's a whole philosophy behind Giftable, isn't there?
Yeah, absolutely. So on that note, the philosophy of Giftable is basically already incorporated within the group. And so the group, which is called Kindness Group, has a way bigger goal than just doing something in gifts, right? We strongly believe that only joint creativity and gifts create intimacy and connection. And we really want to be the guys who are showing the world that more positivity is possible, and that people are generally good, kind, and generous. And so while Giftable is a first product that this group has launched now, and that we are pushing really, really hard and moving forward, I'm 100% sure that later on there will be different aspects and companies to this that can integrate, that are services, that could be other mobile products, that could be web products, etc., etc. As you know, and this will still be under the Giftable brand, we are also launching this pro panel now by the end of February, beginning of March, where we are then doing the same thing with other companies. And when I'm talking with other companies, they're going to be my customers for sure. But ultimately, what we can do in different scenarios is really, really go about this whole concept of kindness. And doing that and being protected on the Kindness Group level as well has been something that we've discussed. And that was basically the trademark we put through within like 3 months. So in the shorter term. But that was great as well. And it was really important for me that not only the name Giftable is going to be protected, because the Kindness Group, it really stands for something. And it's really moving along into a direction where I'm sure that more and more people are going to be hopping up on the train. And if people are hopping on the train, then basically you will find at some point that somebody's going to try and do the same thing, sell the same story, tell the same story, really want to go after the same markets, etc., etc. Because once it's proven, then it's going to be easy. But now it's really, really hard, and really going into, okay, look, these are the numbers, we can show that this is working, etc., etc.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, what you're promoting is not only extremely relevant, but it's actually a real breath of fresh air, where it's not just all about profit, volume. It's actually making a difference, which is something that we as a company, as GreatBrands, can really get behind and be proud of having contributed, at least in one small part. towards the success of your company. So very, very, very well done. So where can people find you if they want to find out a bit more about Giftable and everything that you've got in place at the moment?
Absolutely. So for that matter, as I said before, the premium domain giftable.com is online, and you can definitely check out the website. We are on basically all the socials where we need to be. Only recently we actually joined TikTok, so our marketing department is working on that, which is kind of funny. I've never used TikTok before, so now I'm like all sucked in and really going through the feed. On the other hand side, people can always, and this is something that is really important to me as well, reach out to me directly on michel.hoffmann@giftable.com, which is unusual for someone running a company to be doing that and just publicly stating it. But I'm more than happy to be talking to everyone one-on-one, meeting as many people as possible, and really fostering the kindness movement and saying, okay, this is where we're going. Can you be part of it? Do you want to be part of it? And if you're reaching out, I'm pretty sure you are already part of it.
Excellent. Well, that's definitely a really, really good positive message. And the kind of people that you want to work with are going to be a self-selecting population, aren't they? I mean, they're going to be in that ethos of, on the one hand, your clients that have something to give, and on the other hand, your users who want to give something to someone. So you're working on the one hand with B2B and also B2C. You're a mix of all of those together.
Yes, absolutely. So as I explained before, it's going to be a whole ecosystem. It's not only going to be the consumer to consumer, or B2C as you call it right now, the business to consumer side of things. So it's really peer to peer. And then once we actually have the Pro Panel launched, then we now have a relationship that is going to get better and improving workplaces by having employers doing something for their employees using the same mobile application where they are sending then, in the best case scenario, something to their network. I really feel that you have 5 people around you that you really love, that you really care about. So do I. Probably there's someone that, well, I just don't get along with someone, and that doesn't make that person a bad person. That doesn't make me a bad person, but still it would actually show this whole network effect, this whole network of kindness that is still active. We saw it throughout this COVID crisis tremendously. I don't know how it actually went in all the other countries, but for Luxembourg, I can definitely testify that solidarity has never been higher than we've seen over the past year. We've seen it in business cases. We've seen it on personal levels. It has been an experience that nobody on planet Earth basically has experienced before. And so, yet alone, that very specific case that we had, and with our numbers just increasing and increasing and increasing, it shows that people are kind and generous, and they just want to go ahead and do this. Think about mobility right now. More people are than ever, besides 2020, are traveling, they are studying abroad. We are not connected to them every day. We are not seeing them every day as we were used to at the time. Yes, in Luxembourg, you can go and you can make someone a gift and you can drive up to someone within 30 minutes. If you have a child that is currently studying in Berlin, you can't be doing that. If you have someone in Brussels, then probably you're going to be taking up to 2-hour ride. But it's not like that common in other cities that you're meeting with everyone in each, as we say in Luxembourg.
Absolutely. Well, it's a fantastic message to be actually promoting, and we're super, super proud to have played a part in that. So in terms of finding out more about you, you have opened the invitation for people to contact you directly, connect with you on Facebook and LinkedIn and TikTok, as you very rightly mentioned. So yeah, that's an interesting adventure. And of course, to all of those listening, thank you very much for joining today. Come and find out more about GreatBrands on greatbrands.net. You can connect with us on LinkedIn and on Facebook as well, and you can reach out to us as well whenever you like. So once again, thank you very much, Michael, for being part of this talk. If you have any last minute recommendations for our viewers, please do feel free.
So on that note, I mean, obviously this is for GreatBrands, so I can only recommend to be working with the guys. It has been a great pleasure. The journey was fantastic. Transparency over the top. So and all of that for way little pricing than what we had previous to that. So that's like a bonus. But on the other hand side, really you can trust the guys. You can really be working with them. You can trust them in the whole process. They will explain everything you need to know. As Philip and I discussed already previously, I think that they really need to be educating the market, because most of the people are not aware how important it really is to have your brand protected. There are different scenarios that you will need it, that you will have to show that you know what you're doing, that you know that your brand is secure, that you don't have to worry about that for a period of at least 10 years. There will be oppositions, probably there will be, but don't let yourself go down into all of that. I mean, you know, you have the right team on your side if you want to be protecting your brand.
Well, thank you very much for those closing words. To our entire audience, thank you very much for joining, and we're looking forward to seeing you soon.
Thank you, man.
Cheers. Thanks again.
Bye-bye.